Mississippi State Bulldogs, first year under former defensive coordinator Zach Arnett. Looking to see what Will Rogers is going to bring back to this team. I think he's a guy we have some high hopes for in the SEC West as far as quarterbacks that are returning. See if he can lead this team. I don't know what the offense is quite going to look like with Mike Leach no longer being there.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I mean, this team is gonna, I think, play with a lot of fire. The untimely passing of their head coach last year, right before the bowl game, Mike Leach, college football legend. Super sad to see him go. But yeah, Mississippi State kind of wasted no time revamping and rehauling, how they're going to run their football program. Defensive coordinator Zach Arnett slid right in, took the head coaching job, but he brought in some new assistants. So their new offensive coordinator is very much not an air raid guy. Kevin Barbay, coming in from App State, actually ran the ball about close to 60% of the time. So it's going to look a lot different. And the most interesting player to see that from, I think, is going to be Will Rogers, a quarterback who's had a couple years starting in that system.
I think they'll keep some of those air raid concepts in that offense just because Will Rogers is there and the clear one to take the helm to keep him a little more comfortable rather than changing the whole offense. Obviously, bring in some of that more run focused mindset with the new OC, but you've got an offensive line that may or may not be prepared to run that style of offense. So at some point, you do have to play to your strengths a little bit.
Yeah, and surprisingly, the way we have this rank structured is actually based on record last year in the SEC. I was actually a little bit surprised, even though I caught a few of their games, but they kind of flew under the radar last year to finish third in the West behind Alabama and LSU. They won some games they probably weren't supposed to, and then they lost a couple games that they probably weren't supposed to as well. But overall, I'd say they performed pretty well. The adjustment is going to be key here. I could see them winning 8 or 9 games if they get it right. I could see them losing 5 or 6 games if they get it wrong. Will Rogers, you see it all the time in the NFL. You have the highly touted air raid offense quarterbacks that come in, can't adjust to the pro style under center stuff. I think he has all the tools to do it if there are people that can. But it will be a transition. And then you hit the nail on the head. Things people don't talk about a whole lot is the offensive line. They came in expecting him to be pass pro, 70% of the time, quick passes out and really just holding the line for a second or two. Are they going to be able to run the zone concepts and the power concepts and things like that? I'm sure they can do it. It may be a transitionary period, though. Coming from a Georgia Tech fan here, a team that transitioned a little bit more extremely from the triple option into more of a kind of pro style offense or a little bit more of a spread. The tight end position was extremely difficult, and they're still not there. And I think they're about 4 years now removed. They brought in a couple transfers. So Mississippi State brought in Rylan Godey from Georgia and Jorquavius Spivey from TCU. Uh, both of those guys were, have some game experience, so that'll help them, but they weren't premier names, obviously, at Georgia. They've got Bowers, who kind of dominates that conversation, but Godey got a lot of playing time, more as a blocking tight end, so I think that will help. But again, that transition is really tough to get right.
Yeah, I think what they do have, at least looking forward, kind of opposite of Georgia Tech, it's a lot easier for an offensive staff to take an offensive line that's maybe better suited to pass block and likes pass blocking and make them run blockers than it is to go the other way. Um, they'll be athletic enough. It's a matter of are they going to be physical enough at the point of attack, and that's something that can be coached to some extent. I think it's an easier transition than going the other way.
Yeah, you can only take it so far, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean, guys are who they are. Some players to highlight. We talked about Will Rogers up and down. So I think we're good on that. But he's kind of the big name to track on the offense. He's going to be working to build his draft stock as well. Kind of a under the radar guy who's put up some crazy stats in an air raid offense. If he can get the transition right into more of a pro style under center kind of thing, I think NFL teams will start to rave about him this offseason. And then on the defensive side, they've got an inside linebacker, Nathaniel Watson. Just a really steady linebacker, makes a lot of plays, isn't going to super wow anybody, but somebody that I would be shocked if we don't see him in an NFL roster next year as well.
yeah. I mean, I think this team, it's definitely going to be a transitionary year, and I definitely agree with you. So Will Rogers put in some tape in a more pro style offense. was only going to be a good thing for his draft stock. But I think you will see his numbers go down no matter what, just based on style of offense.
So, keyword, I agree with you. I'd say transition. I see, again, I said earlier, if they get the transition just right, I could see them winning 9 games. I don't think they're going to be competing for the top spot in the West. It's pretty tight this year. But I could see them going anywhere from 5 wins to 9 wins. So it'll be interesting to see this team. A lot of really fun players to watch. I watched a lot of their games last year. Always entertaining. But yeah, we'll see what happens with them next season.